Welcome to today's CAMWorld webinar brought to you by Itivio and Onyx. I'm Stephen Fagg, Director of CAMWorld Magazine. I will be your host for today's broadcast. Our presentation today is titled Game-Changing Breakthroughs in Knowledge Management. Before we begin, I want to explain how you can be a part of this broadcast. There will be a question and answer session. If you have a question, just type it into the question box provided and click on the Submit button. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but if your question has not been selected during the show, you will receive an email response. And if you would like a copy of the presentation, you can download a PDF from the resource icon on the console once the event is archived. Now, to introduce our speakers for today, Riaz Lakhani, Director of Professional Services and Support at Caligo, and Joe Lichtman, Vice President of Technology at Itivio. To review the speakers' bios, please click on the arrow under the speaker's photo. Now let's move into today's presentation, so let me welcome Riaz Lakhani.
Thank you, Stephen. We're thrilled to have sponsored this event today. Knowledge management is changing fast. Today I'm going to share some game-changing breakthroughs that can help knowledge managers take their game to the next level. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the market forces that are beyond anyone's control today. So, as we plan ways to improve knowledge management today, the first thing we want to understand and plan for is the market forces. And today there are three market forces that are totally disrupting knowledge management in organizations. What are these? Number one, the disruption is all around digitalization of the workplace. So the content is being created digitally and is also being consumed digitally. So gone are the days where we used to print out and there used to be paper stacks all around. Everything around you is digital. So how do we go about and transform this digitalization into something that is an asset for us in knowledge management? Before we do that, we'd like you to know that people are moving from job to job with more frequently, and along with them goes the knowledge that they have had within the organization. Cloud technologies are growing. A distributed mobile workforce is all around. And we'll talk a little bit more about distributed mobile workforce in detail as we talk about some of the other disruptors. In KMWorld's survey that was recently released, we have kind of done some studies around what drives this digitalization in a knowledge management space within an organization. And if you can see, the survey shows how many systems are in use across an organization. And this is where we could see that, I couldn't even fit it on one screen. I had to split screen. This is the amount of tools that are being used in an organization on a regular basis by the digital workers at their desks. Now, with this amount of information being thrown around, what is happening is a lot of this information is being siloed. And as you can see again in the survey, the top result there is siloed information system. So, there is my document management system, there's my file share, there's email, and all this information is scattered across these systems. Now, with the information being scattered, let's look at mobility and how mobility affects this entire scattering of information. I personally have three mobile devices. I have my personal phone, I have a tablet, and I have a laptop. And pretty much everyone nowadays has multiple mobile devices that they use on a regular basis. They could be company mobile devices, corporate mobile devices. There could be personal mobile devices that have company information on it. And everyone here is now mobile. In fact, a really, really interesting survey shows that we have as many mobile devices as the population of the world. We reached 7.5 billion in April 2017 as a world population, and we're pretty close to reaching 7.5 billion people who are mobile. Now again, this counts the multiplicity of mobile devices, but this tells you how much reliance do we have on mobility today. It was a really interesting quote from Satya the really interesting quote from Satya Nadella the other day when I was at Microsoft Ignite. I heard that it's not devices that are mobile. You can't call your cell phone because I'm using a cell phone. My cell phone is mobile. No, it is people that are mobile, and devices enable us to become mobile. When we say people are mobile, it means doesn't matter where I am, doesn't matter what device I use, I should be able to access information. And that is what true mobility is all about. It is very people-centric and not device-centric. So once we start thinking about that from a mobility perspective, on my mobile device, the first thing I check is emails. On a daily basis, the first thing in the morning, I turn my phone on and I look at the emails that have come for the day. Email is not an easy beast. It is a huge beast to handle, and it has become chaotic over time. Most of the emails nowadays are accessed on mobile devices. You get communication from your coworkers through email. You share files through email. You collaborate through emails. It's about project management. It's about approvals. Everything uses email. And while we want to believe that, email is kind of on a declining trend because of all the social media and everything, email, based on the surveys, is not going away. Not anytime soon. Email is still the king and is rising. In fact, the study tells us that email traffic is growing at almost 5% per year, and the forecast is for it to continue to grow. So with email getting and growing, it is becoming more and more chaotic to manage email. And the volume of email. In fact, the AIM industry survey shows that 41% of the organizations confirmed that users choose their own archive locations and they save their own emails on their own personal drives. They choose what they want to keep. They choose what they want to delete. And this could be a real problem when it comes to knowledge management within the organization. So that is where we consider that, most of the information that is in an email needs to be saved in a repository of some sort so that, the knowledge that is being captured or being circulated in an email is kept around. In fact, most court cases and compliance investigations today require, production of some sort of communication, email, around those litigations that they're catering to. So we manage our email currently separately from our documents. So, where do we keep our documents is separate from where we keep our emails. Our email is in Outlook and our documents are probably in a repository of some sort. However, emails still contain documents and attachments. And in fact, 1 in 4 emails contain an attachment. 22% of the emails contain attachment. And that is not only creating a problem in terms of information being siloed into emails and then being obsolete in an email, but it's also bloating your mailboxes. Your emails are just growing exponentially, and now we've got into like gigabytes of mailboxes as compared to the smaller mailboxes that we used to have before. The other interesting fact here is that we know that email is used by most workers to share files. What's interesting is, based on this research, the second most interesting repository here is Microsoft SharePoint. And most organizations have SharePoint now. In fact, 250,000 organizations, according to Microsoft, have implemented SharePoint or Office 365. 85% of Fortune 500 companies have SharePoint and OneDrive as their cloud adoption policy. So with that, we understand that SharePoint is another repository where we have information, but SharePoint and Outlook are siloed. Today, there's a disconnect between content that is in SharePoint and content that is in Outlook. And this is very frustrating for organizations, and organizations are turning to third-party solutions to bridge this gap. That brings us to our first game-changing breakthrough for knowledge management, which is integrating your email and SharePoint to make it easy for your end users to access the documents that are stored in SharePoint and also email it to the colleagues within the organization as links and not as attachments. Easy for you to now drag and drop your email into SharePoint and save it for future use, and or drag and drop your attachments into SharePoint so that you don't have to now rely on, oh, let me go back to my inbox and look for that email that had that document that you're looking for. It's all saved in that one repository. So the breakthrough is to integrate email with SharePoint. Of course, the more information you capture as a part of that integration, the better. So SharePoint allows you to capture some metadata along with that attachment and or email that is being filed. So you want to make sure that, when you're integrating email with SharePoint, you want to take some of that metadata and use some of the SharePoint capabilities as well. Of course, SharePoint also allows you to search across the platform. So now you're not restricted to searching just within your repository or your email. You're basically searching your and other people's emails and or content that is basically organization owned. A quick example there, National Grid was able to improve their document and email management in SharePoint by integrating Outlook with SharePoint. They were able to improve their case management and centralized storage of the case-related emails and matter files. In fact, it increased their adoption of SharePoint as they did this because of the silo. They weren't able to get to the information quickly. Along with the integration, they were able to quickly adopt SharePoint as well. Breakthrough number 2 is where we want to get to is file and access content on mobile devices. We already talked about this. Most people open their emails on mobile device, look at them, and a lot of times just delete them right off their mobile device. If we can make it easy for the end users to now file and store this email, if needed, into the right repository, using their mobile device, that is where the breakthrough comes in. They should be able to file file an email and or an attachment anywhere using any mobile device. They should be able to access content using any mobile device. So, that's how you see Dropbox really gaining traction within organizations. But SharePoint allows you the very similar functionality with mobile apps. And of course, with third-party tools, you can take it even further by having the ability to push content to different mobile devices and also being able to tag it with metadata and search metadata on it. So quickly talking about one of the customers that I worked with, Benco Dental, leveraged SharePoint to push sales enablement documents to their mobile sales team. Instantly, they saw productivity gains in their sales staff. Now, when the salespeople for Benco Dental, when they were asked a question by a dentist, when they were on site, they were able to just pull it up on their iPad and respond to queries much quicker and easier. And they were able to file these discussions with the dentists very easily into SharePoint, using some of the mobile tools and mobile capabilities that they got. Breakthrough number 3, this is the most important secret to your success, is monitor and manage the change through clear communication and tracking of metrics. So, it's really important when we embark on some knowledge management project is how are we going to measure the success of the project. And most of the time, the measurement is what drives you into putting together policies and processes that the teams are going to use. In this case, what we want to do is we want to measure and track the process and the relevance of the process to the metric. So an example here would be how are departments filing emails? How many emails is each department filing? And being able to report on that is going to give you the power to, number 1, understand where you have your successes. So, HR department is really good at filing all their emails. I see it. There's a lot of traction going there. However, sales department is not very good at filing their emails, and this gives you an opportunity not to be critical, but to go to them and understand what is the challenge and be able to fix the process so that you can drive better user adoption of the processes that you've put in place. So really key to understanding is the metrics and the success is to be able to track it on the user adoption side. And this is where Air Transat did a really good job. Not only did they track the distribution of their content and their electronic manuals to the right people on the flight deck, but they were able to get a 91% user satisfaction based on just the ability to be able to go back and tweak the processes to their liking so they have the adoption of the process that they want. So this is the key is, at the end of the day, end user has many tools. They have too many siloed platforms where the content is distributed, and you want to make sure that they are the ones who are driving the change and be very user-centric in your approach. So I'm just about to run out of time, but before I do, I want to tell you a little bit about Caligo. Caligo does enable organizations to achieve their goals around knowledge management. Caligo provides tools that enable accessing content on mobile or, in fact, any device, whether it be mobile, desktop, laptops. We can connect to multiple repositories, including email, SharePoint, where you can now bridge that gap, which keeps these repositories siloed. And Caligo also provides the tools that are for management and analytics in the cloud. So it is a complete solution. If you want to learn a little bit more about Caligo, please feel free to visit our website at caligo.com, and you can even use our platform by downloading the apps which we have for free. So with that, I will now pass it back to Joe, who's going to talk about knowledge management from his perspective.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for attending the webinar today. So I want to talk about why knowledge management should be cognitive. So let me first just tell you who Itivio is. So Itivio was founded in 2007, and our legacy is in building mission-critical search-based applications that help organizations transform productivity, improve business outcomes, and power innovation. To date, we've earned 9 technology patents, and innovation is core to our DNA. In the past year alone, Itivio has been named an industry leader by both Forrester and Gartner in enterprise search, big data search and knowledge, discovery, text analytics, and Hadoop platforms. We have a global organization as customers, and including 7 of the world's 10 largest full-service investment banks. We have a deep experience in financial services, but one of the drivers to why we are sort of almost standard in that enterprise is because of their high security requirements around their knowledge management applications. And Itivio, knowledge security in what we do is critical. So when we think about what we're doing with what we call cognitive search and insight, we're talking about increasing the enterprise intelligence, their access to data and understanding how to deliver data to them. And we think of it in 2 main ways. One is cognitive search and one is cognitive insight. And the way to think about that is, for cognitive search, that is the user looking for information. Typically, it's a search box. They're asking questions, and they're looking for documents or answers or people who can help the knowledge worker get through their day in a more efficient manner. We also talk about cognitive insight. In cognitive insight, it's more of a consumer-like experience, something where we understand the context and we're pushing information to you. Everybody uses their Siri. We talked about the previous speaker talked about how everybody's on their mobile devices, and those mobile devices are aware of what you're doing. They've tracked your day. Itivio does very similar stuff, and we begin to understand what kind of documents you may have been looking for in the past, and do have the ability to begin to recommend and push documents to you without you making a request. So the way we do that is with two main pieces of information or data. So one is obviously documents and records. This is the lifeblood of a knowledge worker. This is the information that has been captured in so many repositories, in so many different ways, in cloud services that have sprung up over the past few years, in Hadoop, which is a new repository, Oracle databases, so on and so forth. Really any of the multitudes of ways people can capture and store information. And Itivio analyzes that information in a very detailed way using natural language processing and text analytics and machine learning. On the other side of the coin, to figure out what is the right information to give, how to answer a user's question, we also look at contextual data. We look at the user's behavior, what they've been doing, their past searches, and how they've had positive outcomes in their day-to-day activity interacting with our systems. And we use that, and then we call that behavioral intelligence. Both of those together are brought into the Itivio platform into what we call a universal index, which covers any kind of data, structured, unstructured, emails, Jive documents, communications chats, written documentation, and a secure index, universal index. We control all that stuff, all that information, and all of the user behavior information to drive these applications, these knowledge management applications. So, when we look at knowledge management, what we see is that 53% of executives see knowledge management as playing a prominent role in innovation across their enterprise. So this is certainly what we see our customers doing. So knowledge management as a discipline is certainly not new, and the notion of getting control of information sprawl is vital to most organizations, and there's no one repository of truth. So how do you capture knowledge when you have people retiring and moving on, global enterprises with remote locations, mergers and acquisitions, so new information and new systems are coming in, and countless other scenarios? So knowledge management is not static. So not a one-off activity. It's in constant motion. As companies grow into their digital workspaces and are dispersed, knowledge management becomes even more critical to onboarding and making people effective quickly, and often key to really the enterprise innovation strategy. So, we look at sort of the old way, and we've actually seen this CAM report earlier in this webinar. It bears repeating. Traditional knowledge management is inefficient. It's tough to integrate, and we also want to look at consumerization of IT. People have an expectation. They work with existing tools in their everyday lives, whether it's Google or Siri and Apple and Amazon, and they've come to expect a certain fluidity and seamlessness to their activities that most enterprises are not delivering in the enterprise in their day-to-day offering. And one of the largest problems is siloed information. They have multiple places where information is stored, and they can't go to all these multiple, and they have different applications which access that data, and it's hard for them to do their work in a day-to-day basis. But with Itivio, where there are new technology techniques, and there are better ways of addressing these challenges, which we call cognitive. So more roles of knowledge workers in the past. Think of an airline pilot. We didn't think of them as knowledge workers in the past, but now they carry iPads. They have updated flight maps, airport runway maps, plans, all sorts of, and they need access to this information. So how many knowledge workers are in your organization? What if you could give knowledge workers easy access to the information they need to do their jobs, and how much would you save on a global basis if you could? So what does cognitive mean? How do you bring cognitive to this problem? So there are four key components that Itivio sees. One is a secure universal index, which means that we bring all the information from these multiple silos into a single location, and it's a universal index. We don't care, and you shouldn't care what the type of data is. It doesn't matter if it's a PDF, an email. All of them have to be in one system so that the knowledge worker knows where to go. Next is natural language processing. how will you be able to communicate with that system? Again, people are becoming more and more comfortable. They're not learning SQL or advanced languages to communicate with the system. They are simply asking questions in natural language, and the system is handling some things that any human being can handle. We understand that New Jersey and NJ are the same thing. Users are not that precise. They have different ways of articulating pieces. So any knowledge management application needs to take that into account and needs to be able to handle natural language processing. Also, user experience. Clearly, this is what end users really think of their application. This is what they work with. What's going on in the back end is irrelevant to them. The fact that there are multiple data sources behind it is irrelevant. They know the experience they have from their phone. It needs to be seamless. It needs to be simple, and it needs to be tailored to their needs. And finally, we talk about machine learning. In order to deliver the right bit of information, systems need to consistently and constantly be looking and adapting to what's going on. So new documents are being written all the time. New information is being added to the system. Users' goals consistently move and change. The types of questions they're asking is evolving. And if your system is manually tuned to the previous set of data and the previous questions, it will begin to degrade. With machine learning integrated in, it can adapt. It can learn from the new user behavior and can continually improve towards to deliver the most relevant information that the user needs in real time. So what is cognitive search for knowledge management? What are really three main goals of any knowledge management application when you add cognitive search to it? One is they're looking for answers. Your workforce is simply looking. They have a question and they want the most relevant answers quickly. They don't want to go from system to system, and they want the system to not give them a massive list of every possible match. They want the answer that they can try to get. Sometimes the answer is not, the answer is connecting to a person. Sometimes what you really need to do is talk through it, and you want to find the expert in your organization. Again, organizations are in flux, they're distributed, and understanding the query and being able to sort of tap their knowledge and foster collaboration by offering up and saying, you've asked this question, we may not know the answer, or but we do know who the expert is. Here's someone you should talk to. And then again, recommending content, so empowering continued insight. So understanding the context of what the user is doing and anticipating what their needs are and pushing content to them or information to them in the context of their day-to-day work. Ultimately, that's what everyone would like. They'd like to simply be working along and have knowledge management integrated into their daily activities and applications, asking the questions and having the answer handed to them just in time. So let's go over some real-life examples of what we mean. One example is Cisco, large technology manufacturer I'm sure you're all aware of. And a lot of times when you boil down any application, even a knowledge management application, they have a single set of questions with multiple answers depending on context that really drives innovation and drives their business. In the case of Cisco, that question was really, what product should I recommend to this customer? So on a day-to-day basis, so before Itivio, their sales teams would spend 15 to 25% of their time searching for relevant content in order to help drive their deals going forward. With the Itivio development, they would platform. They were able to unify focused content from multiple systems, and their field teams were so much more efficient over time that they've realized what they say is about $350 million in field operations. And the way they did this is that there were so many different repositories: SharePoint, Confluence, public website information. They used things like featured content, so they knew certain content that they wanted to push out could be pushed out through the system. They personalized it based on the CRM feeds, what that user needs and what the customer needs. It's a dynamic system. The way the information is bundled together changes on a day-to-day basis depending on what's going on in the marketplace. and ultimately just intelligent search, helping them retrieve the most relevant information at the right time, and do it through a conversational manner. They actually integrated in a speech, so you're talking to the system. That is knowledge management day, talking to your phone and getting an answer. Another interesting example here would be Thermo Fisher. Now, with Thermo Fisher, we're talking about a company that has constantly grown over time. They've made many, many, many acquisitions, and they're required to integrate multiple systems over time, and they continue to grow. And many of Itivio's customers fall into this category, where they're constantly bringing on new systems, either through acquisition or through because different subgroups have picked up new data sets, whether it's Dropbox or Box. These systems are so easy to integrate in at the group level that organizationally there's this sprawl that needs to be dealt with. What they were worried about, what they needed to do, is improve sales opportunities and ultimately reporting on their customer satisfaction. Again, this is knowledge management. This is the information that is most relevant to Thermo Fisher in this case. So with Itivio, they were able to unify 5 different CRM instances, including Salesforce and Siebel. And they eliminated the manual work required to report on these applications. So they didn't have to go to each application. Since the information had been brought into a single system, they could do all sorts of additional analysis. And they were able to eliminate a lot of manual work in that way. They've also done some things, and they've built in unique interfaces. In this case, they provision it to a BI tool like Tableau, so they can analyze further the information that they're getting out of their systems. And it's a seamless transaction where they open up Tableau, point it at their knowledge management system, and have a completely different application running on it immediately. These data sets brought into one place yield a lot of new opportunities for knowledge management applications that may not look traditional to many people. So now they have global visibility of their current and past opportunities. They have highly flexible reporting and consolidated sales information across all their accounts, all their corporate divisions, and they have interactive sales and satisfaction reports that they can report on in Tableau in this case. And they are constantly bringing in new information, bringing it online and normalizing it. And then ultimately, the results speak for themselves. So they've identified that they've had over 30 million new opportunities in their existing customers by being able to use this sort of application, reduce their reporting time to 1 hour from 5, I think was the ultimate. And then Thermo Fisher, the capabilities identified in the first weeks they actually found about $500,000 in new opportunities. So that's it. Next step. So thank you for talking to us, and we have. You can come to Itivio if you want to just sort of see our platform. Come to our website, download it, try it for free. And also our next webinar will be with Thermo Fisher if you want to learn more about the application that they built on Itivio.
Thank you very much, Joe. At this point in time, we're going to move on to questions from our viewers today. And the first question is to Riaz. Riaz, we have security concerns around mobility. How does Caligo keep mobile content safe?
So mobility is a really tricky place to be in because the data could be on corporate mobile devices and or personal mobile devices. And the way Caligo has looked at solving this is adding more sophistication around multi-factor authentication, implementing policies which you can now push, and our apps are intelligent enough to understand those, either through Caligo Console, which is where you manage these devices, and you can implement policies like remote wiping, blacklisting, disabling open-in and printing of content. So the applications do allow for safety, security, and then also implementing policies based on your organization needs on what you want in terms of security on your mobile device, passcode enablement with automatic data deletion. So those kind of policies can be implemented on the application itself. in your mobile device.
Understood. Thanks, Riaz. Joe, our next question is for you. Joe, how does Itivio handle permissions and security across multiple systems? We have information in SharePoint, Dropbox, and on shared drives. How does Itivio help with that?
Yeah, that's a common scenario. Those are the silos we were talking about. So what Itivio does is it integrates with those systems, extracting out the documents, but also the access control lists, and it indexes those on a continual basis. And it also integrates and connects with Active Directory or LDAP so that we understand who the users are and their credentials. All of those are brought into the system, and the security that is applied in those third-party systems is applied exactly the same within Itivio. So if you are looking for a document that matches a particular request or is maybe even, unfortunately, the answer or the best answer for you, but you don't have access to that document in the source system, Itivio will not show you that document. So it basically recreates the security faithfully within the Itivio system.
Understood. Thanks, Joe. Riaz, our next question is for you. You talked about mobility and email chaos. Which of these two areas are organizations investing in first or most?
So it is a very tricky one because the emails is where you have the most chaos, and you want to make sure that the content that is in the email is stored in a much more governed way. So it depends on each client and industry. Highly governed rules that include communication with the clients or with public in general, as with lawyers and government agencies or financial institutions where they have a lot of their clients' engagements. Caligo Engage for email management is really the important component of their email management strategy, because then that allows you to file emails into SharePoint that you can search later, which you could tag as client documents and things like that. For mobility and mobile users, like people on the road, people who are like field engineers or sales staff, our mobility apps are a little bit more popular. And that's because many businesses have both legal department and sales team, and that's where we find our complete solution with mobile email management and content management on mobile devices. Both those solutions are gaining traction. So it really depends on what your organization needs are.
Understood. Joe, our next question is for you. Joe, I don't have machine learning expertise in my company. Do we need a data scientist to leverage machine learning in our organization?
Good question. No. I mean, what Itivio is doing is leveraging machine learning, building out all the models internally as part of the way the system works. Machine learning is really just a way to take large data sets and discern patterns. In this case, the Itivio has embedded machine learning that understands the patterns in your data, understands things like when people are mentioned in names and locations, and personal information is identified like social security numbers and phone numbers, and it also leverages machine learning to understand user behavior. But again, there's no manager to that. Itivio simply just says, give us that information, and our application will use it to help basically find the right answers and the right information for the knowledge workers.
Got it. Thanks, Joe. Riaz, our next question is for you. Regarding breakthrough number 1 that you talked about, are you saying SharePoint should run email servers?
No, not quite that. So if we were to go back to our breakthrough that we talked about, the breakthrough is to integrate email with SharePoint. So I'll give you an example. A knowledge worker sitting at a desk working through some client files on a regular basis gets emails through email and Exchange. So Exchange should be your email server. Gets emails with the clients through Exchange. Now, some of that information is really relevant regardless of this person's person still works with you or not. So if this person now leaves the organization and goes away, what happens to the information that he got from the client, which is only residing in your email server today? The option here, what happens is, and this is the reality on the ground, when the person moves on from the organization, that knowledge is captured and archived in an external PSD file that is then archived on some disk, and that email is never looked at again. That is the reality. As much as we say that, we're doing the due diligence, we're not. That's where it ends up, is in a PSD file on some drive somewhere, which is never going to get accessed. So what we're trying to say is that it is really important for knowledge to stay within the organization. It is important for you to enable your users, your mobile workers or your digital workers, to be able to move that content from email into a repository where you can now in future, whether the person is with the organization or not, have the ability to look for that content and make informed decisions based on the content that was provided to you and the knowledge that you have. And that is where it is really important for you to enable your digital users to file the relevant information. Again, I'm not saying all emails need to be filed to SharePoint, but some relevant information. Customers nowadays, approvals are done over emails. Can you please approve this invoice? And you'll get it back saying approved, and that email is the only proof that the customer approved your invoices. How do you keep track of that? If you leave it in this person's mailbox, who now after 6 months leaves the organization, there goes your approval. So this information is knowledge and needs to be filed into a repository that other people, even after you've moved on, can find that information when needed. And that is what I'm trying to get through by saying, breakthrough one would be integrate your email with SharePoint.
Understood. Thanks, Riaz. On to our next question. Joe, many of my users have mobile devices and they can't sift through a long list of search results when they are in the field querying the system. How can you guys help with that?
So, Itivio builds a lot of mobile applications on top of cognitive search, and one of the key, so some of it is simply user experience. It doesn't really matter what the device is, as long as the application is responsive, so then you could display results in an intelligent way. But what we're moving towards, and what you're seeing more and more, is not a list of search results, but rather an answer. So finding the information, answering those questions within the application, so that the user simply doesn't have to do as much work. They can ask the question, or they have a set of types of questions they can ask that they will receive not a list of results, but a single answer to the question that they're posing. And that alone makes their mobile experience significantly better and more in line with what they do in their day-to-day life in the consumerization of IT, and how people expect when they're on a mobile device, they're expecting a consumer experience, not an enterprise experience.
Understood. We're at about 15 to the top of the hour, so at this point in time, I'd like to just get your final remarks for the attendees on today that are really looking to change their knowledge management game. How should they get started and really just ensure their success? And let's start with you, Riaz.
So I think it is really important to think about how the end users and the digital users are going to store the knowledge that you have within the organization. We did go through some of the chaos around email, and email being the primary repository for most people nowadays. And what we want to do is take it from that email repository, which is very siloed, and put it into a repository which is more open and easy to use and can share information organization-wide. We also understood that people are mobile, and you can't just have tools that are on desktop that allow them to do this. We need to make sure that these tools allow to be used anywhere, regardless of what device you're using. So whether you're at your desktop, whether you're on your laptop or on a mobile device, any device should enable you to allow you to do to file these emails and or access content, search for content across these repositories. And those are the three breakthroughs that I wanted to talk about.
Understood, Riaz. And Joe, your final remarks.
Yeah, my final remarks really don't fight your employees and your knowledge workers. One of the things that people tend to do when they embark on a knowledge management initiative is they want to change users' behaviors, and that's simply unlikely to succeed. What we've seen succeed very well is to go where the users are. So if the users have multiple repositories, bring those repositories into a single location rather than asking them to put everything in the same place, and build those applications in a way that is intelligent enough that they can do the day-to-day work, and also be willing to develop applications on that base that is integrated into the day-to-day activities of the knowledge worker.
Understood. Once again, I'd like to thank our speakers today, Riaz Lakhani, Director of Professional Services and Support at Colligo, and Joe Lichtman, Vice President of Technology at Itivio. If you would like to review this presentation or send it to a colleague, please use the same URL that you used for today's event. It will be archived. Plus, you'll receive an email tomorrow once the archive is posted. You can grab the URL. This normally happens within 24 hours. And just for participating in today's event, you could win this Fire tablet. The winner will be announced on September 29th. Go to camworld.com to see if you're the winner. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes today's conference. We appreciate your participation. You may now disconnect.